Let's go over the Obi Wan Kenobi Star Wars movie. This is Mike Zero here. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, as you all know, the future of the Star Wars franchise seems to be very expansive, with tons of projects currently in the works. We have Episode 9, Rian Johnson's trilogy, the creators of Game of Thrones and their set of Star Wars films, and a whole lot more to come, including Star Wars 2020, which is said to be the Kenobi movie. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about the third anthology film. In fact, we just went over yesterday how Disney and Lucasfilm are in the early talks with Ewan Mcgregor reprising his role as the Jedi Master Obi Wan Kenobi once again in the third anthology film, which I am really crossing my fingers that we really do get to finally see Ewan on the big screen once more. Now, one new thing that we did learn about the Obi Wan Kenobi movie is that it will be a film that ends the Skywalker narrative, at least when it comes to the movies. And a lot of you guys may be wondering to yourselves as to what in the world does that mean by the Skywalker narrative? Essentially what it means is, of course, all these different movies covering the life of Luke Skywalker and his overall story. So in the original trilogy, it covers his late teens into his early 20s with all the different time gaps and time jumps included. And then if you look at, of course, the sequel trilogy, The Last Jedi, he's in his 50s, so he's a mature man at that point in time, and he's older, he's a Jedi Master. It covers that point in his life, even to his death. And in Revenge of the Sith, we witness his birth and himself as a baby as he is handed to his parents who adopted him, right? Now, looking at everything else, alright, the Obi Wan Kenobi movie will be a story that actually explores Luke Skywalker's childhood, at least to a certain extent. We do know that TMZ went over this big report not too long ago that the movie would feature, Obi-Wan looking over a young Luke Skywalker. How involved Luke will be in this movie, we have no clue. How significant will a young Luke Skywalker be in the film? That's a big question for sure. Now, I think that having a good role for a young Luke would be a huge plus to the movie. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree with that, but I think that having a young actor portray yet another version of Luke Skywalker would quite possibly be interesting. It could be a risky move to some people out there, but I think having at least a small part in the movie is a great way to do things. In fact, if you look at Star Wars Rebels, they kind of lightly touch on this, where you hear, Aunt Beru yelling, "Luke, Luke," and you see him running across, the desert to his home. I could really imagine something like that in the Obi-Wan movie, except, a little bit more than that. Like where we actually have maybe perhaps Obi-Wan confront Owen Lars, and he wants to essentially meet up with the boy, Luke. And maybe those two are arguing, because from the comics we do know that they have a big argument. Maybe they could add in a scene in which we have Luke coming out of his room or something like that, looking at what's happening between these two, right? Owen, Lars, and Obi-Wan yelling at each other, or just Owen yelling at Obi-Wan until Obi-Wan leaves. And this is essentially what gives, Luke the idea that he's, just, that crazy old wizard man by Owen Lars, as he keeps telling him. So there's a lot of potential of what they could really throw into this movie. I know that one of the big worries about this film is that it would just be Obi-Wan on a desert having nightmares and having regrets. I think there's a whole lot more to it than just that. Like I say, they've been looking at, Switzerland as a possible location for shooting this April, and that to me just really, really rings that it's going to be, a story about Bail Organa and going to Alderaan, because in Revenge of the Sith, that's where they shot for Alderaan. Now, is this a good or a bad thing that this movie would be the end of the Skywalker narrative, at least for the Star Wars movies? That means that Luke Skywalker's story would be officially done and closed in Star Wars 2020. Alright, so for 2020, Luke's story would be closed for good, at least when it comes to the movies. Now, there's still the possibility that they could explore in between the events of the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy in one of the live-action TV series that they are currently working on. We do know that Jon Favreau's movie is actually currently in the works, which takes place, by the way, 7 years after the events of the Battle of Yavin. So there's a great potential there of adding in a little Luke story as well. We do know that that movie, or should I say that TV show, is going to have a ton of new characters. But anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.